Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about sugar. Can it destroy your joints? If you have chronic joint issues or you want to heal faster, this is a very important video for you to watch. Before we dive in, please smash that like button. Love to see your comments down below. We'll definitely be responding. And make sure you sub for more great content like this. All right, so let's dive in here out of the gates. I'll pull up my little checklist here. So bones are essentially endocrine organs in a way. They are going to produce a hormone-like compound called osteocalcin. Osteocalcins are produced by the osteoblasts of the cell. Osteoblasts are like the builders in the bone. They stimulate calcium to go into the bone and kind of regenerate that bone matrix. People don't know, but your bone is actually about half protein. So protein plays a major role with essentially reconfiguring your bone, keeping the integrity there. And so if we're eating crummy food, inflammatory food, and we're not making enough hydrochloric acid and enzymes and we're inflamed, that's going to have a major impact on your joints. If we're eating too much sugar, sugar plays a major role inhibiting the osteoblasts up here from making osteocalcin. So osteocalcin is going to play a major role on your blood sugar. So even though you're adding more sugar, right? So you eat more sugar, right? That's going to lessen your osteocalcin, which helps build the bone. But osteocalcin also feeds back and actually helps regulate your blood sugar as well. So now your blood sugar can get worse. Also, osteocalcin also feeds back in to the cells of Leydig in the testicles, which then cause testosterone formation. So osteocalcin also plays a major role with testosterone. Now, if we have a joint injury, right, we need our healthy anabolic hormones. Women, you still need testosterone as well. Most people don't know this. When you ask someone, you're like, well, what's the most predominant hormone in a female's body? It's actually, most would say estrogen or progesterone. It's actually 2 to 3x more in the side of testosterone, which is crazy to think. And again, guys have about 10 to 12 or so more than females. So really important on the testosterone side. Again, plays a major role with learning because neurogenesis requires osteocalcin as well. That's like new, essentially, neurons being formed in the brain. We have neuroplasticity as well of these neurons kind of reaching their tentacles out, which allow the brain to work better and control better. Like when you work on practicing a new skill, right? That's neuroplasticity. You're rewiring new pathways for your brain to control muscles in a fine-tuned motor activity like throwing a baseball or playing a guitar. That's neuroplasticity. Now also, neurogenesis as well, but also very anti-inflammatory for the brain, and they play a really big role with neurotransmitter synthesis. So a lot of your neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, which comes from serotonin, GABA, a lot of these neurotransmitters come from protein, but they play a major role in learning, thinking, dealing with stress. Osteocalcin plays a role, like I already mentioned, with testosterone, right? Brain, and which is going to be really important for healing. And again, misconceptions, right? Everyone thinks, essentially, if you go back to kind of where food and recommendations came from, if you go read Gary Taubes' book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, it came from the McGovern hearings in the late 70s. Essentially, sugar was on the chopping block to be demonized for heart disease and all kinds of cardiovascular issues, or it was going to be saturated fat. So essentially, the food industry threw saturated fat to the wolves as the bad food. But really, when you look at it, it's more of actually the trans fats, and it's actually more of the sugar that is the real problem. So a lot of people have kind of been sold the bill of goods the last 30 or 40 years. And again, special food interest, this is what happens. Misinformation. So people think, hey, sugar's okay. Just got to count the calories. It's low fat. And that whole low fat thing of the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s allowed people to justify, hey, sugar's fine because it's low fat, right? But that's a bunch of hooey. Now, if we're worried about joint issues, right? If we're worried about joint issues, we want to be on top of our diet. Inflammation plays a major role. When we're inflamed, whether it's gluten, whether it's excess, casein if you're sensitive, processed food, right? These foods have lots of chemicals, lots of inflammatory things in it, lots of glyphosate, pesticides, things that can screw up your hormones. They're going to play a major role driving up inflammation. When you have higher inflammation in your body, you're going to have less blood flow. You're going to have less healing capacity to recover tissue. Skin, hair, nails, joints. So it's very important that you are on top of anti-inflammatory, low-toxin, nutrient-dense diet. Now, when you add more of these things in, there's all kinds of different things that can happen in the body. I'm just kind of going through some of the mechanisms here today with osteocalcin and how it plays a major role with tissue and brain and neurotransmitters and testosterone. And then also, sugar is going to make you weaker, right? You can go back to the Jack LaLanne videos of the 50s and 60s, I'd say 40s and 50s when he was younger. He was doing videos that talking about how sugar weakens your muscles. I think intuitively, a lot of these, early days fitness guys, they kind of knew. They had an intuition that sugar weakened you at some level, right? They may not have had the biochemistry down like we're talking about in the video, but they had that intuition. So now that we have, more science to kind of look at it and break it down and make a video like this, now you know where it's coming from. So a lot of this wisdom, I think, and intuition has been there for a while. Now, what else can we do if you're worried about joint issues, right? What else can we do? So we can also add in collagen peptides. Collagen's excellent because we just don't get enough collagen. We're not getting bone broth. We're not eating the cartilage and the ends of the bones and the skin a lot of times. It's just not, a thing that we do. But it's good that we do it, and cultures that we've evolved from have done it for millennia, right? So reducing processed sugar, adding in vitamin K2. Vitamin K2, you're going to get it in like fermented foods. You'll get it in butter. You'll get it in some seafood. Grass-fed livers loaded with it, right? But that's going to help calcium get into the bone. Now, your bone, like I mentioned, 50% protein, 12 other minerals, predominantly, calcium, strontium, etc. But calcium makes up a big role of that other half of the minerals. Vitamin K helps that calcium get in there. Vitamin D also helps you absorb phosphorus and absorb vitamin T at a much higher level. So you significantly increase your you significantly increase your calcium when your vitamin D is high. So good vitamin D, let's say a blood test, 50 to 70 or so on the blood test reading for the American reference range. That's going to help with more phosphorus. That's going to help with more vitamin D, which will help increase your calcium. Again, improving bone health, improving osteocalcin function. So just want to make it clear, kind of break down the biochemistry. So if you have joint issues, total joint, knee replacement, you're older, 50 and up, and you're having joint issues, you really got to watch the sugar. Remember, breads, pastas, and glutens can all break down into sugar. The most deadly sugars are going to be fructose, partly because of the fact that they're processed. You may get them with other types of glyphosate residue to it, and we have less capacity to regulate fructose compared to glucose. With glucose, we have more storage capacity in the muscles, where fructose preferentially goes to the liver. Glucose goes more to the muscles. You have less storage capacity in the liver. So, and it tends to be, it tends to drive insulin resistance more, where glucose, which may come more from starchy foods, so you get glucose more from the starch, like your potatoes, sweet potatoes, where fructose is more in the processed food because they process the corn that way, and it's 55-45 fructose to glucose, but it's going to be more insulin resistant stimulating. Hope this makes sense, guys. If you enjoy it and you want to dive in deeper, you have bone health, you have hormonal health issues, you want to dive in deeper, if you have gut issues, right? So forget like everything else I said. If you don't have good digestion, low stomach acid, low enzymes, not getting the nutrients in, you're not going to have the nutrients coming in, absorbed, assimilated, and ionized. Especially with minerals, you got to ionize them to be able to absorb them. That makes them water soluble, or essentially soluble in the blood. And of course, the protein has to get broken down by hydrochloric acid to break them down into amino acid form so they can be utilized, assimilated, and uptaken into the blood. So I hope that enjoys, but if you want to dive in deeper, you want more support, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out to my staff and team. Happy to dial you in and work on a functional medicine protocol to work on helping to achieve your health goals. All right, guys, if you enjoyed it, let your family and friends know, and links down below. Make sure you sub. Take care. Bye now.